Well, hey, business building warrior, welcome to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We have a great episode today for you that is a first. We've got 4 coaches from our team who will be taking over in just a moment, bringing you some of the most insightful observations from our coaching leadership team that we've ever put on one podcast episode. It's a chance for you to meet the people behind the coaching program that we brag so much about around here. Now, if this happens to be your first episode, let me fill you in a little bit. Maybe you've only heard a few episodes. You need to know a few things. We've been coaching in e-commerce and specifically on Amazon coming up for 19 years now. We've coached, coming up on 20 years. We've coached nearly 10,000 people. The coaching organization that we've grown has about 60 coaches at this point, and those coaches are broken up into teams. 2 of the coaching leadership teams are Larry and Sue Pruitt and Brian and Robin Olson. They coach coaching teams, and they also take on students themselves. Well, that's who's going to be taking over in a moment. You're going to see 4 faces on the screen. Larry and Sue, great married couple, been with us for a very long time. They'll tell a bit of their background. And then Brian and Robin, who, if you've listened to several episodes lately, you've heard them guest host a good number of episodes. But they just banter back and forth, talk about some of the challenges. I love how transparent they are. We never want to paint the business opportunities that we teach around here as being something so simple that anyone could do it. No, it's not. It's blood, work, tears, sweat, sacrifice, risk, and in many, many cases, triumphs. That's what we love to bring you on this podcast is those success story interviews. So if this is your first episode, listen to 15, 20, 30 more episodes. You're going to hear most of our episodes are very invigorating, encouraging interviews with the successful students from our program. But today it's a little different. We're talking to our coaches. They're being very transparent. What are the challenges that they see when they coach our students? What are some of the common pitfalls? What can someone expect if they sign up for coaching? So at the end of this episode, I think one of the questions you might have answered is coaching right for me? Do I want to connect with these guys and maybe get into their coaching program? If so, or if you just want to talk to someone about it, it's a very low pressure conversation. There's nothing high pressure or twisting your arm about it. We want you to take your time and make a great decision. We want to leave you better than we found you. But how about having a conversation with one of the consultants on our team who can talk to you about the realities of the business models that we teach around here, the e-commerce and Amazon seller training systems that we have, as well as if it's a good fit for you or not. We don't want any students if it's not a good fit. We want you coming in with a very realistic idea of what it looks like to build a real business online. And of all the things that you could focus on, from our experience, having coached a whole bunch of students successfully, starting out with Amazon replens is a good fit for the vast majority of our students, which is why our guest hosts today spend so much time talking about that specific business model. If you want more information on our coaching program, you can go over to silentjimdotcom. There's a link to our coaching. Fill out a form, set up an appointment, have a conversation with someone on our team. Make it a Zoom call so you can see, get to know them a little bit. We're so proud of the team that we've grown there and their ability to communicate what it is we have to offer and make sure that we only allow in people that it's a perfect fit for. One last announcement before I turn this over to our great leaders. Are you coming to the Proven Conference in July 6th through 8th in Columbus, Ohio? That's 2023, here in just a couple months. We'd love to see you there with hundreds of other listeners to this podcast, along with dozens of coaching leaders from our team and the most successful students in our community. Hundreds of us are going to gather for 3 days, over 40 breakout sessions with great topics. You can read more about it, make a good decision about attending by visiting the website. Are you ready? 3 words. This is the website, theprovenconference.com. Get over there, grab your tickets, beautiful hotel at a tremendous negotiated discount rate. You do not want to miss this event. If you enjoy this podcast at all, you will absolutely love the live event, even if you're brand new to e-commerce and selling online, or if you've got a 6-figure business. Either way, you're going to be very glad you attended this event. It's our 11th time doing this, and we're so proud that it's the longest running e-commerce Amazon seller event in the Amazon seller universe. That's pretty cool. Well, let's turn it over to our guest host today. Enjoy this conversation, and thanks for being the best part of Silent Sales Machine Radio. Take it away, team.
Welcome back to Silent Sales Machine Radio. We are your co-hosts. I'm Brian.
And I'm Robin Joy.
And this is a special edition of Coach's Corner. Today, we're joined by Larry and Sue Pruitt. Thanks so much for joining us, guys.
Thank you so much for having us on. We're really honored that you invited us.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this tonight.
Great. Well, we were chatting a little bit before we hit the record button here, and I just want to take a minute to express how happy and privileged we are to have you on the show. Since this idea was kind of born from us, we were like, we got to have Larry and Sue on. And so I think we've kind of felt like we wanted to get our groove first so that we weren't total noobs here, but
we're still goofballs.
So goofball, we can't help. But we have done this a few times now. So hopefully it'll flow.
Sure. Yeah, you guys are fantastic. I love watching your chemistry on camera.
Oh, that's kind.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Well, I gave you kind of a lead in for what we thought would be a good topic, and just kismet, it coincides with what you guys spoke about at the conference last year, which is traits of your successful coaching clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, we've had the privilege of being coaches for 5?
I think we're at 5.5 years now.
Oh my gosh.
Wow. That's great.
Just seems crazy. And some of these stories we tell over and over again. So hopefully people haven't heard, too many times. But, whenever we first when Nathan Bailey approached us about being coaches, whenever he walked away, Sue said, I think he's got us confused with somebody else.
Oh.
all along with all of this. But yeah, it's been an honor to be a coach. And we've had, I guess, hundreds of students over the years now between reactive and proactive. And so we've definitely seen both the negative and the positive. We've seen the successful and the unsuccessful. And I think sometimes it's been helpful to kind of compare and contrast those as well. And I don't know, just one of the things that pops into my head at the very, very beginning is that some of the unsuccessful students don't utilize their coaching. That blows me away a little bit.
Absolutely. Yeah. Sometimes they either just come for a session or two or don't necessarily want to hear what we have to tell them sometimes, that type of thing. And then, the flip side to that is
positive,
the students who utilize their coaching sessions well, and they come to the session expecting to get guidance, looking for the guidance that they need. Usually by the time we're in the second half of sessions, they're coming with lists of questions. And that is really fun because we know that they're active at that point and they're looking for more information. And honestly, by then, usually Larry is pretty much doing all of the coaching of our students. So that's one of the things that we see.
I was to say we see the same thing, and we try to, at least I do, and I'm sure Robin does too, is like let them know you've got a coaching team here, right?
Right.
You've got your primary. There's some verbiage that may not be common knowledge to everybody, but you get a proactive coach who's teaching you the main concepts, and then you get a reactive coach. And if you come into it as a couple, and you're also working with a couple and a reactive coach, you've got a great mastermind sort of built in. Not that any of you or all of you will be on a call or on the phone at the same time, but as the coaching client, you've got a lot of people that you can actually mind meld with and come up with some great ideas.
Right. It's like a little mini mastermind.
It is.
All based. Just a little mini mastermind, all based on the success of the coaching client. So I think that's great. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's totally it. We're totally focused on giving the student what they need so that they can grow their business. And the other aspect of that is that as a team, all of Jim's coaches we're involved in our own kind of, almost mastermindy group on Facebook. And so if we have a question come up for a client that we are unsure what the right path is, we have all of the coaches that we can go to with that question, and we can get really good counsel from many different perspectives. And so I always tell our students, ask any question. And if I don't know the answer, I know I can find it. And so that's the big benefits of being on this team.
Yeah, I think that's very helpful. And I've used that myself many times. And just having people that you can reach out to either privately because you know them, or in the group that we have that we can all communicate with each other. So that's really helpful. I also think that we've noticed that couples do really well in coaching a lot of times. I don't know if that's because they have each other to kind of have that accountability with each other. They're expecting, you said you do this, and I said I do this, and I expect you to do your part. Sometimes we see it like that, but I don't know if you guys have had the same experience. We do see couples doing really well in coaching a lot of times.
Yeah, that's a really great observation. I don't know that I'd really thought about that before, but teaming up on things is a really great approach. And that doesn't mean that somebody who's doing it solo can't do it, obviously.
No, not at all.
But that would kind of speak to, like, if somebody is trying to do it all on their own without any help, that's not a successful approach.
Right. Exactly.
Approach. So if you are doing this on your own, if a student is doing that on their own, we would really encourage them to get a support system in place, either a mastermind or just somebody you can bounce ideas off of and such, because it really is incredible. Like, for example, in our situation, it's incredible how many dumb ideas I have. And that you can then say, no, we're not doing that. Let's focus.
You never have dumb ideas. No, Brian never has those.
No, normally Sue doesn't say it's a dumb idea. She just says, yeah, maybe we'll do that someday.
When we this, and this is more about us as business owners, but when we came into this, I had no business mind whatsoever. I didn't have. Larry had the business degree, he had the experience, all of that. And so there were a lot of times that we were discussing, how do we move forward in the business from here? And I would come up with an idea that maybe a business minded person wouldn't come up with, but some of them worked.
Well, sometimes that can be super valuable because we get so ingrained, especially when, Brian and I both have had careers in business for years and years. We've been around for a little while. And we have had this conversation before where sometimes what we know about business in the situations we've been in has really gotten in our way as entrepreneurs, because when you take those rules away, then we get a little lost. So it's very valuable sometimes to have somebody who is not stuck in those rules to help out with coming up with ideas outside the box.
And just to be totally honest, whenever I was in school, which has been a few years ago as well, everything has changed. I mean,
yes,
the rules, you kind of just throw those rules out the window. And that's where, as coaches, we can really help our clients, because now we kind of know, like, the new rules, so to speak, and how to deal with Amazon and just all the headaches that they can give us and everything. But a lot of times it was just good old fashioned common sense that Sue would bring to the table. And so so somebody who's doing the solo, whether their spouse is just, not involved, but hopefully they're supportive, they're not married or something like that, just to have somebody that can bounce ideas off of, they may be able to bring a really good perspective to that as well. So none of us should be doing this alone. It's kind of the bottom line.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Absolutely agree. Yeah. There are different ways to have support systems. There are different places to plug in our community here. And we always encourage that as well. But yeah, we should all have somebody that we're bouncing ideas off of. And I think that helps us be successful.
Absolutely. We talked about, I remember in our first we were guests on the podcast when I was telling Jim the story about how when Robin came to join me in the business, it was not just now it's me plus Robin and that equals 2. It was really more like 1 plus, 1 is, I think I said 100 or something like that. But the synergies that you get just by having 2 people involved, 2 different perspectives, 2 different experience levels, it's so challenging as it is to keep track of every little thing in Amazon. And when you can divide and conquer, you can really, it's super valuable.
And we've seen that with father-daughter, friends, business partners. We've seen that in several different ways through our coaching clients as well. And I'm sure you guys have seen way more than we have.
Yeah, we've definitely seen it. I mean, we do the same thing even with our coaching. We have our areas of expertise. And so
yes, we do that too.
Always Sue will start off with a student, and she's just really good at kind of getting their expectations set properly, which that's another thing we could talk about here in a minute, is the expectations of successful students. And so she really helps to get the basis, I would say, really is kind of what you do.
Yeah.
And then I go more into the technical,
Right.
like how to find replan type stuff.
Yeah.
We talk about mindset and those types of things. And then the other thing that I didn't know that I would be good at this, but one of the things that I really kind of enjoy is a challenge of a student who might be struggling with their mindset. And sometimes I have, I say sometimes I'll have a come to Jesus talk with them, like, okay, you're thinking this way, but in order to find success, you're going to need to start thinking this way. And I've been able to really help quite a few students really kind of, turn some of those things around, and because they were open to it, that's part of it.
Yeah.
And then they could kind of reset themselves, and then they knew how to tackle, okay, now here's how I need to go apply what Larry has taught me. And so that's kind of that we team up on coaching.
That's great. Yeah, we do kind of a little bit of tag team as well. There's certain things that I do in our business and that Brian does in his business, and that's the
Our
different
business.
things that, I mean, in our business, yes, it's all our business. Yeah, mostly my business, but but yeah, we tag team. Oh, you want to talk about that next, and I want you to make an appointment with Brian because he's going to be really good at walking you through that, and then we kind of go back and forth on a couple of items. Yeah, so I think that works really well for us to be a couple.
So as far as when you get a new coaching client in, is there any sort of indicators like in that first session or two that make you think this person's going to shortcut it, like, take off like a rocket, or this person, I might need to spend a little bit of extra time with them to, like you were saying a minute ago, Sue, kind of change their mindset on things. But do you get any early indicators about that?
There are a few things that one attitude that I sometimes see, and this isn't very common, but sometimes what I see in a student is they kind of have this mindset coming in like, okay, I paid my money, turn on the secrets, so it's going to by osmosis just get to me, and I'm going to, rock it to the top. And so that kind of tells me what kind of work I need to do in that first session. A lot of times is explain that you're still going to go through a process, but it is going to be quicker for you because you've got the guidance of people who have gone before. So you're still going to go through it, but it will be quicker, but it just probably won't be overnight. Now we've had some students who have come in and they're just like, feed me all the knowledge and the information, and they're, taking notes isn't a requirement, but a lot of them are, they're taking notes and maybe they're watching our sessions, and they're sending emails between sessions. Okay, I'm doing this. Am I doing this right? Or, at the beginning, how do these items look? Do these look like these would be good ones? And then Larry's really good at just walking through and saying, here's why I would test this, or here's why I wouldn't test this. And they're not just getting a yes or no from him. They're getting, how do you analyze from him? And that the ones who really take to that, they tend to take off a little quicker. So,
another thing that we've seen, like if we have a session, we come back in a couple weeks and then they start giving me all the reasons why they didn't do any, and I understand life is really busy. We all deal with that and everything.
Absolutely.
But some people do just become kind of excuse machines. And so, we try to challenge them on that. It's like, okay, did you know that your kids had a lot of activities this, over the last couple of weeks? Did you know that was going to happen? If so, you kind of plan it, you need to work with it and such. And so, we all do have excuses, and there are sometimes there are just really good good reasons why you can't do things. So on one hand, sometimes we'll have a student who will go ahead and schedule the session and that, they just didn't do anything. So that's not going to lead to success. But then I've also had people who have tried to cancel a session saying, I've been working like crazy and nothing is working. And I'm like, there's ever a time we need to have a session. Now is the time we need to have a session.
I absolutely agree, Larry. That is a huge, huge thing that we see as well. If you feel like canceling, that's probably exactly when you should not cancel. Sorry to interrupt, but we see that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so the regular session, so if somebody's scheduling regular sessions, You know, we normally have students who get 8, 10, 12 sessions, something like that.
Mhm.
And we try to get those completed within a few months.
Mhm.
You know, or if we're kind of dragging those out and then all of a sudden it seems like the student has gone through the witness protection program, like we can't find him. You know? It's like, where are you? You know, that's obviously a problem. So the successful people schedule regularly and they've done their homework. And even if they're struggling, they come and they just, you know, they tell me their problems, and then we work our way through those things, because we all struggle at times, right?
Mhm.
Oh.
We do. Yeah.
And that's what, you know, as coaches, there's a couple of ways that we can approach it, right? We can talk about the mechanics of how to do things, and for some people that is often enough. Like, they've already got the mind right, they've got the motivation, they just need to know how, and that information is freely available in our community in most cases. But we can help, you know, bring that learning curve down a little bit or a lot bit, depending on you know, the situation. And I totally lost where I was going with that.
I don't know, but what I was going to add
Yes,
to that, wherever
okay.
you were going, if that's all right.
Yeah, go.
Was that, no, I'm going to forget.
Teamwork.
What we try to do when we meet a client, and in the beginning they have their goals, but they really don't know what's possible.
Mhm.
So we got to kind of get into it a little bit before they kind of form their goals over time. And it takes, you know, 2 or 3 weeks before they realize what's possible. But we always want to, and I know all of the coaches, all in Jim.com coaching, all think the same way. We are there to help you meet your goals, not for you to fit into some kind of box. And when you get that information generally, like you were talking about it, all the information is out there,
Mhm.
but it's out there for the mainstream receiver of that information. When you have a coach, you've got somebody who knows exactly what your life looks like, what your challenges are, what you're trying to accomplish, and we can kind of help you make a plan around that.
I remember my point now. I got it.
Okay.
It goes back to what Sue was talking about. There's the mechanics, and then there's the challenges, right? That Larry was talking about. Okay, I ran into all these roadblocks this week. Okay, sometimes usually those roadblocks are not technical. They're in how we are approaching the problem mentally. And so what you're talking about, Sue, is spot on. And you got to do some of both sometimes. Sometimes it's a lot on the mindset. Sometimes it's a lot on the mechanics. Usually I find it's a little bit of both, but what Robin said is true. It's tailored to the coaching client, whatever it is that they need. Not, here's the program that you're going to get for the next, 12 sessions.
Yeah, it's not like that at all.
Yeah.
Oh, exactly.
And
Exactly.
Just kind of an example of that. Because it is fairly common for us to hear from our clients that they're having a hard time finding replens at the beginning, because
it is hard in the beginning.
It is hard in the beginning. Yeah. Sometimes it's still hard now. I don't know.
Yeah.
But one of the first questions I've started asking our clients now is, okay, how much time are you sourcing? And a lot of times it'll be 15 minutes here, 10 minutes there. The kids are interrupting and such. So then it's immediately kind of like what you're saying, Brian, one of the more technical thing about, okay, you need to set aside a block of time, and maybe 3 hours, like maybe something significant like that. And then the other thing I ask them is, what time of day are you doing it? Well, between 11 and midnight. And you're probably exhausted and you're not going to do anything well right now. So can you carve out a time of the day that you're just fresh? And so sometimes it's just a simple little scheduling thing. And we've got some scheduling tools that we send them to help them to where they kind of prioritize their week and to give priority time to the most important tasks.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Sue.
I say it's super important that it's been 10 years since we started selling seriously on Amazon, but we still remember those early days so clearly. And I've said it before, the path that we walked through was, I remember standing in Big Lots. It was probably the third or fourth time I was there. And I had been, scanning. At that time, all we knew to do was scan barcodes. And so scanning barcodes for, the hour or two that I had to be there. And I literally one day, I just threw up my hands. I was standing in the middle. I just threw up my hands and I said, somebody is not telling me the secret. What is the secret? Can't find anything. And then, but the key there is to persevere and walking through that. And that's one of the things that we can do as coaches is we can kind of be the cheerleader. Like, you can do this. You just have to persevere a little bit longer, and it's going to click for you. And that's what I found was the secret was to keep doing it so that I developed my scouting muscle so that I started to recognize what would work. And so that's the type of thing that we can do for students is to just let them know, yes, you're going to have hard times, but there's light at the end of the tunnel. I promise you. You just keep
Yes.
I love that. Like, the secret is perseverance. That's what it is.
That's the secret.
It's the biggest, because I feel like the biggest hurdle that you face in this business is when you first start out. That's the biggest wall that you have to climb, the biggest mountain that you have to climb, whatever it is when you're first starting out, making that. And if you can get over that first hurdle, which is really just not quitting, failure is not an option, persevering through, life getting in the way and you struggle with the process and you don't feel successful. If you can weather that storm, then you're generally going to be okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Doesn't mean there's not a lot of work to do still, but you can see it. Mm-hmm. If you can get to the point where you can see it, then generally, we have a lot better success.
Yeah.
Do you guys agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's a little bit unfortunate that the biggest hurdle is the first hurdle you come up to.
Yes.
And so, and in some ways that's a good thing though, because all of our quote unquote competition is going to give up. And so those of us in our community, as we're encouraging one another to not give up, are going to be way ahead. But if it was easy, everybody do it. So
exactly right.
Right. And I do say to clients all the time, I know it looks discouraging. I know you're discouraged right now. And I know that you can't quite see it yet. But if you'll just lift up your head and look around in this community, there are hundreds of us who are making a full-time living doing this and living very well doing this. It is possible, and people are still succeeding every day.
Yeah. And, we do hear from people also who kind of get discouraged by the success stories.
They do. Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it's because you're listening to an hour-long podcast of somebody who's got great success. And the first 45 minutes, they're talking about the struggles and the challenges and everything. And the last 15 minutes, they're saying like, man, now it's kind of a breeze and I've got a team built and everything. And people just want to jump straight to that success level. And they kind of forget about all those challenges at the beginning. So
I think you're better served if you had some challenges that you overcame in the beginning, and as opposed to if it was super easy, then you'd face the challenge later and maybe not be able to recover from it. But in the beginning, I think you gain a lot of confidence by persevering. And once you get over that hump, then you feel like, okay, I got this, and you can pretty much handle whatever comes your way.
And it's empowering too to overcome those struggles.
Yeah.
It builds confidence.
Absolutely. And just like what you mentioned earlier, Brian, about like developing that mindset, like we can't fail. We have to do this. This is we're going to make this work. Getting over those first early, really hard hurdles gives you the confidence to face the later ones, even though they're going to be very different. We've talked a couple of times about, we've had a couple of really challenging years throughout our time when, the only reason we stayed in it was because we had developed that perseverance muscle. And we knew that we knew if we just work really hard, we can get past this particular hurdle, whatever it is. And also we learned the lessons from those things. I think that's another thing that people need to do is you need to learn a lesson from the challenges that you face. We've talked a lot about in 2018 with the health issues that Larry had, and then that really hurt our business. And we recognized the reason it hurt our business so badly was because we didn't have a team and we didn't have people who could pick up the slack when Larry couldn't be in there doing what he needed to do, what he normally did. And we started building a team so that the next time we faced a big hurdle like that, we had a team going and the business didn't suffer because of that. So recognizing what is the lesson to learn from this and taking action on that lesson, I think is super key as well.
Hey, we'll get back to today's episode in just a moment, but I want to tell you about the sponsor that we have today. It is another podcast. It's the eBay for Business podcast. If you didn't know, I started my e-commerce career over 20 years ago selling on eBay. I love eBay. To this day, we still use eBay a lot every week. It's one of the multiple income streams that my business enjoys. If you'd like to learn more about eBay, get started, or just grow your eBay business, I can't recommend any other podcast higher for that topic than the eBay for Business podcast. It's the premier podcast for eBay sellers in e-commerce. You're going to hear interviews with executives from eBay headquarters, from other sellers who are building successful businesses, tips on finding inventory, on taxes, on all the things that go into building a successful eBay business. That's the eBay for Business podcast. You'll find links in the show notes today as well on a couple popular platforms, or just search for eBay for Business on your favorite podcast app. Let's get back to the show.
So that the next time we faced a big hurdle like that, we had a team going and the business didn't suffer because of that. So recognizing what is the lesson to learn from this and taking action on that lesson, I think is super key as well.
Totally agree.
Absolutely.
So I'm going to ask you a loaded question here.
Yeah.
Is one of the traits of your successful coaching clients that they have a lot of available capital?
Oh,
Not necessarily.
I don't think so.
That was what I was going to say. Not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
No,
We've had a few, but most of them are pretty,
I got to be honest.
would be kind of low.
I don't want to say that's a negative, but it
Mhm.
can be a negative at the very beginning.
Mm-hmm.
It can be.
Some people will kind of just say, I'm just going to throw some money at everything here.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had some situations where some students have struggled because you still got to start by buying 3 units of something at $5 each.
Exactly.
I
Yeah.
want to buy a pallet. I was like, no, don't buy a pallet yet. So I definitely, we didn't start with much, and
We
we've
didn't
had
need it.
I'd say most of our successful students have not started with much.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah. Agreed.
I agree. I think there's a point where desperation, where you need it right now, that's not going to work really, really well. But the amount of money is really not the biggest issue of getting started in what we've seen.
Yep. Agreed. So it was a loaded question. I knew that was going to be the answer, but I think
You pass.
a lot of people think like, well, I need to have 10 or 15 or $20,000 to start this business. And that's just not the case, right? You can start small and grow the business. Before we were getting on with you, we were in another coaching session with a coaching client who is like, they've got almost everything down, just a few tweaks to the business, and they're going to just be flying. And they don't have thousands and thousands of dollars in the bank, but they've got a great system. They've got the knowledge and they got the perseverance. They're going to be fine.
Very good. It still comes down to the same basics.
Yes, it does.
It does.
Good decisions, and you're still gonna, even though you read the keep a chart, you do everything. There's still some of them something's gonna fail with that.
Yeah, you still have to test, and anything can happen to any ASIN. So you got to get okay with that.
Yeah, exactly. One of the things that I try to really stress to clients is that all the tools that we use are great tools, and they give us a lot of information. And that information allows us to make the very best educated guess that we can make. It's still a guess, but it's a good educated guess. But because it is a guess, sometimes it's not going to work out the way you think it's going to. And I always say, use all the tools and get all the information that you need, make your purchase and send it in. And then the only numbers you care about are yours. It doesn't matter
That's right.
that 100 of them sell every month. How many do you sell? And then that tells you whether or not that's a good product for you.
That is profound. That is exactly the thing that it makes the difference. Play your own game, do what you plan to do, and it'll work out or it won't work out, but it'll be your plan. Don't let other people decide what's going to happen to you.
Right.
It's actually
very good.
It's actually a lot of fun to go back and look at the keep it charts on the list you're selling on.
Yeah.
Because you're like, I don't know if I'd even buy it today with looking at that keep it chart.
Many times when we have clients that come to us, they have all this old inventory that they can't get it to move for, whatever they were doing before they come to us. And we look at that and say, okay, well, would this be something that you would buy now that you know what we've talked about here? And well, no, All right. Well, let's
Yeah.
move that along and
Yeah.
let's go and start making these kinds of decisions and working this plan.
Well, Sue just is always dropping these gems, and
Yeah.
not excluding you, Larry, at all. But I love
Also,
yeah,
Larry.
yeah. But I love that you say, like, it is yours. It doesn't matter whatever else happens on the ASIN. I'm adding that to my talk track.
Yeah.
But I gotta let you in. It's probably not a secret. I hope it's not. That I use something else that I heard you say a while back that is in my talk track a lot, which is, if we're going to be good at this business, we have to be good at identifying what doesn't work more so than identifying what does work. Because we have to look at hundreds and hundreds, thousands of ASINs to find the ones that are going to be good. And the longer we spend on the ones that aren't going to work for us, that's just wasted time.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, absolutely. I'm sure you've heard me say it at the beginning. I would get like emotionally attached to something and say, oh, this is the coolest thing ever. It's going to be so much fun to sell. And then if I couldn't sell it, I was like mad for like 5 minutes. It's like,
Right.
really?
Yes.
Yeah. It feels like they took it away from you. Yeah.
Yeah. Now we're to the point like where if I'm doing RA and I'm checking out and the cashier is like looking at saying something, what is this? And I'm like, I have no idea. I didn't really pay attention to what the product is. I just looked at the graph and it's going to sell. So
that's right. I don't know what this is, but I know what the Keep It chart looks like.
yes, that's it.
So are there any, I asked about leading indicators before, but any parts of the conversation when you're doing that sort of initial call or two with a client that you go, oh yeah, this person, this couple, whatever, they're gonna nail this?
Yeah, it really is the whole idea. They show up to work and they listen. I think that's a huge key, is that, I walk through a lot of intro stuff with those students in the first session or two. And I talk about, what coaching is going to look like. And I start talking some of the basics of, scouting and how you should organize yourself and that type of thing. And the students who take all that in and ask clarifying questions about that and, kind of want to get a handle on what I mean when I say things, those are the ones that are probably going to take off. Mm-hmm. The ones who want to challenge what I'm telling them and say, oh, I don't think that's going to work for me, or I don't see how that could work, or, those types of things. Those are the students that I'll kind of, give Larry a little heads up, like they're going to need a little bit more direct talk, like this is what's going to work, and then he knows if they start to have trouble, he can, ask them, he'll be listening for those key things. Like, are they, not convinced that what they're seeing in the chart is true? Are they not convinced that, I should be able to do this in 15 minutes a day and, jump to 30,000 a month in sales, and all that kind of thing. That's not been our experience. And I don't think we've ever had a student that was their experience. So I try to lay that aside as quickly as possible. But yeah, so those are the types of things that I hear that kind of let me know what trajectory they're on. We can change that, but they might come in on a certain trajectory that we have to change.
Mm-hmm. Well, what else can you share that you said you had done this at the Proven Conference last year? What else are good tips that we can talk about?
I definitely think we touched on a little bit earlier about using the entire coaching team that a client has access to. So when we started coaching, we did almost all reactive coaching. So that's kind of like an assistant coach. So in between the main sessions, that's the coach that kind of answers emails and things like that. And I literally think that we were assigned to a couple hundred students at a time.
Yeah.
Sounds like it's ridiculous. How could we have done that? And it's because the large majority of them didn't utilize it. It just makes me sad, yes. But of the ones who did, like, for example, there was one student that I would get multiple emails per day from him asking questions, really good, intelligent, pointed questions. And I even kind of had to say, like, can you consolidate these for me, please? Because it'd be like there'd be 5 emails. And we always joked about it. My goal was to respond to all 5 of them before he had a follow-up question to the first one. So I started thinking, let's consolidate those. But I knew this guy was going to be very successful because he was working it and he would think of questions and he would just ask. It's like, that's what we're there for. And so, I think some people are a little bit timid at this. They're just like, oh, I don't want to bother you. It's like, you don't understand, like, we're doing this because we love to teach. We love to, and
you hired us. I mean, that's what the deal was when you hired us,
I think sometimes people feel like, okay, I paid this money for coaching. I hired people, and then they don't want to ask what might be perceived as a dumb question because you're like, well, but really, you're spot on, Larry. Like the whole point, I think, of this is, number one, there are no dumb questions, and number two, this is a whole space that you don't know anything about or you know very little about. And so you want to get the lay of the land. You got to, in order to do that, you have to ask a lot of questions and get as much experience as you can. And that only happens by doing.
Mm-hmm. And one of my favorite things to say to students who kind of indicate, I know this might be a dumb question or whatever. I always say, look, none of us were born knowing any of this stuff. We all had to learn it. So you have to learn it, and you're going to learn it by asking the question. So ask away.
Yeah. Well, we talked last week or the week before about when a coaching client gets to a particular point in the business, there are some risk factors. And I'm curious about where you see those risk factors might be along the coaching journey or even the Amazon seller journey.
Kind of the cautionaries where people might fall down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, we talked about giving up, that's number one, is that people can very quickly give up. The other thing is, the whole issue with account health on Amazon.
Yeah.
And that is a real challenge because Amazon has actually improved a lot over the years. For anybody who started in the last couple of years, it's a lot better than it used to be. We used to sit there, they had that, that little red flag thing would pop up.
Yep. I remember. Yep.
And you didn't know why it popped up, and you were just like panicked, like, what just happened?
You're in trouble. Guess what?
Yeah. And unfortunately, I really stressed about that, and I would be checking that. And that's a negative. Like, you shouldn't just constantly be in fear that Amazon's going to shut you down. They really have helped us with the account health score, and you can monitor it. You can respond to things now. And there's actually an account health team that you can call. And then there's amazing resources like Scott Margolius and Jeff Schick out there who can help to alleviate a lot of the concerns with that type of stuff. But then the other side of things, other than like worrying about all the time, is people who totally ignore it. Never check their performance notifications or their account health screen. So you want to find a nice, happy medium there. But that's one of the biggest risks that we've seen is sometimes we'll have our students share their screen and just kind of give a little tour of Seller Central. And I'll say, here's where I check every time, every day, multiple times a day, because I'm still a little anal about that. But
we do too. We have a checklist that we go through every day, and we share that with our clients. Yeah.
Yeah. And sometimes, you'll see I forget one student, it was something like 44, suspected IP things or whatever. I'm like,
that would scare me.
I was just like,
I guess it depends on volume.
Wow.
So yeah, just that's one of the the big what do we like, the two gutters. You don't want to fall in either one. You want to stay down the center there.
Yeah.
Well put. Well said.
Yeah. So just take care of account health, stay on top of it. Again, talk to your coach about that. We've probably dealt with every account health problem out there. I don't know. And so we can at least give resources to the clients if they need it. But so don't ignore it, but don't stress too awful much about it. And sometimes I've been guilty of this, of passing up really good opportunities to buy and sell product for fear of account health issues. And there's ways of going about it to protect yourself as well. So, I mean, that's one risk thing.
Yeah.
Think of others?
I guess, I don't know if this is along the same lines as what you just asked about, but the students who, this was one thing that Larry really addressed last year, who see their coaching sessions as gold nuggets. And sometimes some students think, I got to hold on to these gold nuggets in case I need them later. And other students say, I need to invest these gold nuggets so that I can get more gold later. And the students who invest and do the sessions and take the action, they reap the benefits. there's a story in scripture of somebody who hides the gold. Well, it doesn't multiply, it doesn't grow at all. The one who invests it grows it. And so as a student, you really need to make sure that you're investing the time after your monetary investment. You need to invest your time and skill into making that pay off. And it will if you do. So
also
That's
well
a
said.
Great point. And,
Yeah.
and one of the indicators for me, and I think Robin would agree, is when we're seeing like sessions get scheduled, like 4 or 5 sessions in the first 2 months. And that's not that's not how you should do it. I'm just saying, like, when I see that happening where we're back to back for 3 or 4 weeks, that's when I know I get a really good feeling like they're really taking off, as opposed to, because it's the momentum, right? If you don't get some momentum, it's like you're starting over every single time that you have. Okay, I didn't get it. I didn't get a shipment out last week. I got to start again. And it's really tough to really get going when that happens.
Yeah, we will see people that will, it's like the picture of you're pushing a big rock up a hill.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so getting that thing going is really hard. But then we'll see students that will kind of do something and they're like, okay, now I'm going to sit there and wait and watch my Seller Central until it sells.
We call that hatching eggs.
You got to keep the momentum going on that rock, so the rock just slid right back down on you.
Right. Yes,
so
exactly right.
We kind of talk about that momentum or the snowball effect of, if you're like Jimmy Smith, he talks about 30 replens in 30 days. So start off with just trying to find one a day to test. And if you do 3 units, so you've got 20, 7 days, 3 units, you've got 21 units you're shipping in that first week. The second week is going to be another 21 units because it's 7 more. By the third week, maybe 1 or 2 of those replens sold. And so now you've got 21 new ones, plus you're replenishing 1 or 2 of those. And you can just start seeing the momentum. You get into week 4, 5, 6, and now your shipments are 40, 50, 60 units, and your shipping costs go down per unit and all that. You start seeing some success there.
Yeah. Keeping that momentum going is critical.
I think that's a key. I know that consistency is one of our biggest keys that we think to the business is consistency. I suppose you guys probably have some more of those yourself, some keys that you think are very important overall.
Yeah.
I mean, consistency is huge. And within that, so you talked about having a checklist. One of the things that we want them to do is to get as quickly as possible to sending in a shipment regularly. If you can quickly, then that's a pretty good pattern. And in order to do that, you're going to have a whole list of things you have to accomplish in that week. And so just make sure that you make that happen. You just knock those things off your list every week so that it ends with sending in a shipment. And that's what's going to make that business grow. And so it's things like you have to do scouting every week. You have to do addressing account issues every week. You have to address customer service every week. You have to prep items every week. You have to box them. You have to get them shipped. So there's things that you have to make sure that you're doing. And another thing that I encourage clients to do is one of the first things I talk to them about is, what is your goal? And we talk about that in a variety of ways, but one of them is going to be monetary. And so I have them work out for themselves. Larry created a spreadsheet that they can plug numbers into until they really like what they see. And then that lays out what is your goal then each week and each month, to achieve the goal at the end of the year. And I encourage them to print that out and post it where they can see it. Because if you can see, I need to spend at the beginning maybe $500 or $1,000 in a week. And I've been doing my sourcing here at the computer and I spent $800, but man, I'm really tired. But I look over at that sheet and I only have to spend $200 more to meet my goal this week. I think I can keep at it until I can find $200 more. And so that, putting things in place that will encourage you to keep going even through the tired times and the interrupted times and all that, because we all have that will help you keep going even through that, can be the difference to you getting momentum or losing momentum. And so, and as we just discussed, momentum is huge. And if you can get it going, it will help to carry you forward the way that you want to go.
Yeah. I think one of the big keys to what you just said there is that those spending goals.
Yes.
So people always think about the sales goals, which obviously is important, And that's what people post on the Facebook page. And Jim is really good about coming in and saying, what's your margin?
Yeah.
Because he wants to make that point about, it's not all about the big number, it's about the bottom line.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you need to spend, and of course you need to spend wisely, but it's just so important. I think that's one of the big keys that sometimes people don't get is that the spending is what drives everything else. That's what starts that engine. And you've got to find those good items, to whether the replens or even one-off type things, but you've got to do the work, find those items, spend that money, get that thing sent in, and then keep repeating that while you're waiting for that to get checked in and then sold. And then you'll start seeing the big numbers.
Right. And then that turns into the next. So you take that profit and you put it into the next thing, and it turns. And that's why you're sitting in bigger and bigger shipments all the time.
Yeah.
Because you've got more and more to invest to buy product with. And I mean, the size shipments that we're sending in now, I don't think I ever even fathomed that we'd ever get to that size of ship, way back. So
and we did it very slow.
Very we are the poster children for slow and steady. Yeah.
Well, we've got the I don't get it. The king of I don't get it. And
the king and queen of slow but steady. Yes.
So,
Yes.
Well, I'll tell you, everybody knows, I think, that Brian was doing the business, and then I decided that I was going to do it with him, after he started making some money, you figure this out, and then I'll come help.
Yeah.
But one of the things that initially that he taught me was we have to have a shipment go in every week. We have to control the things that we can control.
Mm-hmm.
We can control how much we spend. We can control how often we ship it in. We control how many items we ship in. That's what we can control. And every one of those things, all of the other things, the sales will take care of themselves if you do what you can control. He was right.
Well,
don't tell him I said so.
That came from my coach. I mean, that's what my coach was telling me. And so I was like, okay, well, this is what we have to do. And I started seeing some success that way from myself. And so I was just passing it on. And really, that's what we were taught these things by somebody else, right?
Right. And that's really all we do as coaches is share what was taught to us, what we've learned.
Yeah, and that's another great point. Another thing that we see from our successful students is that they are very good learners.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
So, sometimes people, like, there was a time, matter of fact, it was Kate Chaddock, just to show you that, like, the high level of teaching this was. And I was going to one of her sessions. I think it was at a Proven conference or a Legends conference.
I think it was Legends. Yeah.
And she was just like, Larry, why are you coming to my session? And I'm like, and so this was kind of early on. She wasn't quite as famous as she is now, but I just said, because I'm going to learn a lot from you. I guarantee it.
Yeah.
And I will learn a lot from actually our students all the time.
Oh, I learned we're always sharing things that we learned from our clients that day. Yeah. We
never think you've got this. Never think you've got this thing figured out. I mean, you got to stay humble. Amazon will humble us.
Yes.
Yes.
But yeah, we're constantly learning. We're kind of conference junkies.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
We go to conferences all the time.
And it kind of makes sense because Amazon is changing all the time. And if you're going to be successful, you have to be comfortable with learning new things all the time. And I get exhausted with it sometimes. Sometimes, oh man, I don't want to learn this new way of doing this shipment. Come on,
I know.
Whatever it is. Can we change it one more time?
Yeah, you have to be able to do that in order to be successful. We've got students that sell on other platforms too, but, mostly our coaching is focused on Amazon. And if you're going to do that, you have to deal with Amazon's rules and rule changes.
Yeah.
Which can be a little frustrating, but.
Yeah, the goalposts can move. And we've talked before about how it seems like every year there's something that comes up that we need to readjust for. Yeah. And I don't see that slowing down. It's just the maturation of the marketplace, whether that's on Amazon or any other platform for that matter. But yeah, the learning is it. If you are set in your ways, you're only going to do it one way, you probably aren't going to last that long. But if you come in with that mindset that you're willing to adapt, humble yourself, learn what it is, and be ready to pivot all the time, then you'll be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we have really enjoyed getting to spend some time with you both today. Is there any other things? I really just threw out a very vague topic and we're like, hey, let's talk about this. But is there anything else that we didn't cover that you might like to share?
Well, we're thrilled that you invited us to do this.
Yes,
and
thank
this
you.
has been really a joy. We don't often get to spend time just with you guys like this.
Right.
So this is a lot of fun.
Yeah.
We absolutely do that. So
yeah,
one more thing?
I just, we kind of touched on this a little bit earlier on, but just the successful students go in with kind of more realistic expectations of what this is going to take to be successful than some that they're either unsuccessful or we just have to work with them to get them over to managing their expectations. So I think as sellers, coming into this, just realizing that it is going to be a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
It's fun work. I mean, sometimes we have people ask us, how many hours do you work? And I'm like, I have no idea.
Yeah.
Because there's times I'll be like repricing at midnight and Sue's like, are you working? And I'm just like, oh, I guess I am. I'm just kind of having fun because I'm going to start seeing some sales on this. But so expect this to be hard work. Hopefully it will be fun for you as well.
Mhm.
But just realize that, slow and steady is really the proper way to do this thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then some of the other things that we've talked about before about, what drives sales and such. But,
Yeah. And I think also, it's two types of expectations: the expectation of what it's going to take to get there, but also the high expectation of we're going to be successful.
Yes.
You want to have that expectation as well, because if you don't have that, you're not working towards anything and you start doing this because you don't know where you're going. If you know where you're going, you can go straight there. But yeah. So I think it's really important to have both expectations that yes, we're going to be successful and it's going to take some good educated work.
And we're going to persevere.
Mhm.
Yes.
That's
yes.
right.
Persevere. Yeah.
Now, we also like to celebrate everything. Celebrate the first ASIN that you found a test. We're going to celebrate the first shipment that you sent in, and we're definitely going to celebrate your first sale. We're going to celebrate, and we do in our own business, we celebrate every little thing because that makes life fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Have fun with it.
That's
For
right.
sure.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, speaking of fun, this is a ton of fun. I'm
I'm
really looking forward to seeing you both at the conference this year. I know we passed each other a few times last year and we were in the same room a few times, but really looking forward to seeing you and spending some time with you in Columbus.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah. Really excited about that.
It'll be fun.
Anything else you'd like to add, Robin, before we wrap this up?
No, I think that Larry and Sue have really given us some good tips, and we really appreciate you guys just having a chat with us and sharing some of your knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so much appreciate this. It's been our pleasure, and we look forward to doing it again soon.
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
we so
Anytime.
appreciate
Sounds
it.
great.
Yeah. And I think that what you guys are doing, this is a great thing for the community to see, give them that kind of little behind the scenes look or what have you at coaching and what's possible with it. So I love this. I'm glad you're doing it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. You inspire us all the time. And so we, like I said, look forward to having you back on at some point soon as well.
All right, Brian, what cures that?
What cures that? More ASINs?
More ASINs.
Go wider? Yeah.
Take care, you guys.
Hey, thanks so much.
Thank you.
All right.
Take care.